My apologies, I will start that again. My name is Dr. Michaela Jackson, and I am a lecturer in public relations and communication here at RMIT University. Today, I'm going to be introducing 4 speakers from our School of Media and Communications different programs. First, we have Dr. Bruno Shabinsky, the Program Manager of the Bachelor of Communication in Advertising. Next, we'll have Ronnie Scott, who's the Program Manager of the Bachelor of Arts in Creative Writing. We'll then hear from Dr. Deborah Wise, who's the Program Manager from the Bachelor of Communication in Public Relations. And last but not least, we'll hear from Dr. Chengju Huang, who's the Program Manager from the Bachelor of Communication in Professional Communication. Now, these programs are world-renowned and allow students to work across a variety of disciplines to replicate the real-world experience they will need when they start their careers. And I can verify this firsthand, as not only do I teach into the Public Relations program, but I also completed honours in the Professional Communication program a few years ago here at RMIT. And after working for more than 10 years in professional practice as a communication professional, it's a delight to work with my colleagues to help the next generation of communication professionals start their careers. Next slide, please. Before I go any further, RMIT acknowledges the people of the Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nation, on whose unceded lands we conduct the business of the university. RMIT respectfully acknowledges their ancestors and elders, past and present, and we also acknowledge the traditional custodians and their ancestors of the lands and waters across Australia where we conduct our business. Next slide, please. RMIT is committed to redefining its relationship in working with and supporting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander self-determination. The university's goal to achieve lasting transformation by maturing its values, culture, policy and structures in a way that embeds reconciliation in everything we do. In line with the principles of Bunjil, we are changing our ways of knowing, working and being to support sustainable reconciliation and activate a relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous staff, students and the community. We're now going to move to our first speaker, Dr. Bruno Shabinsky, who is our Advertising Program Manager. A little bit about Bruno. Bruno is a statistician, a behavioural researcher and a senior lecturer in advertising here at RMIT. He consults for scientific institutions such as the Polish Ministry of Science and Higher Education, as well as the video game industry and online service providers. Dr. Shabinsky specialises in consumer behaviour, social media engagement, online branding and user-generated content. His research has received international coverage in channels and outlets such as Forbes magazine and Google News. Now, just a quick note before I hand over to Bruno. You can absolutely post questions in the chat and we encourage you to do so. And you can do so as we go during the presentations today. The questions will be addressed towards the end of the session, and a little note that you can also like questions that other people have asked, and that will also help us to prioritise questions that we address. Now, over to you, Bruno.
Thank you, Michaela. Thank you for the introduction. May I ask for the... Thank you for the introduction. Can I ask for the next slide, please? So how are you going to get started with us? Well, the first thing you need to have, of course, finished year 12, and English is also required. But the most important thing is the selection task. In this task, you're going to be looking for understanding the ways how you would be approaching the development of an advert. And this is all about creativity, and it's all about your imagination. We're not looking for the marketing aspects or the technical aspects. We're looking for your approach, and as I said, it's about the creation and it's about being creative. May I ask for the next slide, please? Okay, so here you have the structure of the program. Everything here, of course, is on our website, but in a nutshell, the navy blue boxes, they represent the core courses, okay? The focus of the program, as I said, is to give you the tools to create advertisement, adverts, and professional campaigns, the professional advertising campaigns. Regarding the other courses, you're going to be able to pick, mix and match your classes from a large selection of options. So you can really shape the program according to your needs, your likes, and your preferences. It's very flexible. Can I ask for the next one, please? Okay, so I would like to share a few words with you about Pitch Night. This is one of the highlights of the program. It happens during year 3. Pitch Night's a platform we have created so students and advertising agencies, they can meet. This is a perfect place for you to, I would say, to kickstart your advertising career, extend your networks, or even look for internship if that's the thing during the third year. So as I said, this is a platform where you can really get started into the national and international advertising arena. Next slide, please. Okay, so in the next few slides, I'm just going to sample and give you like some demos, just show you the impact of our students on the industry. So in this particular case right here, 3 of our students, they were shortlisted for the famous Cannes, the Future Lions Award. This is the 2021 round. They have produced in one of our courses full advertising campaign. So you name it, like they got like billboards, magazine ads, internet. So everything related to the communication campaign, the advertising campaign, it was covered in this one. Next slide, please. Just the same here, our students, they got the 2021 round for the Design and Art Direction Award with a campaign around the brand. Same story, like the whole campaign. We're talking about offline, online, billboard, magazine, TV, radio. So the whole range was there. Next one. Okay. This is at the individual level. So one of our students won the Australasian Writers and Art Directors Association Award. So here, like, what can I say? We're getting like, this is not, I'm just showing the 2021 round, but this is an ongoing thing. So every single year, you're going to see like our students and staff getting awards at the national level, at the international level. So this is actually fantastic. Next slide, please. So you should be asking yourself like, okay, so how about the jobs, right? So anything related to work in an agency, we're talking here art direction, examples, right? Media buyer, media planner, copywriting, preparing the ads. So pretty much the sky is the limit here when we're talking about the creation and the development of the adverts themselves. Can I ask for the next slide, please? Okay, so this is the last thing I would like to share with you, and this is just a summary of everything that I present so far. So finishing the Bachelor's of Communication Advertising, you're going to be prepared to work in agencies, not only in Melbourne in Australia, but across the world as well. The program is widely recognized abroad, and actually this is one of the benchmarks of the creative advertising industry and the education in the world. So it's going to be very nice to have this batch in your CV. Well, thank you so very much for listening and attending, and back to you, Michaela.
Great, thank you very much for that, Bruno. A friendly reminder as well, just to post any questions that you might have into the chat. It's great to see a couple of questions coming through, so keep them coming and we will address them towards the end of the session. I would now like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Ronnie Scott, who is the Program Manager of our Creative Writing Program. Ronnie is a Senior Lecturer in the Writing and Publishing discipline here at RMIT, and as I mentioned, a Program Manager of the Bachelor of Arts in Creative Writing. He's a lead researcher on a new history of Australian comics and graphic novels, and his novel, The Adversary, published last year, was shortlisted for the ASA Gold Medal and the Queensland Literary Award. And a little bit of a fun fact, Ronnie lives with a 14-year-old one-eyed cat named Tigger. So over to you. Thanks, Ronnie.
Thanks, Michaela, and hi everyone. Thanks for coming to Open Day. So I'll talk a little bit just for the next sort of 5-10 minutes about what the Bachelor of Arts Creative Writing is, how you can get into it, and what you get out of it, and the types of things that we do for the 3 years that we have you. First of all, I guess just to give you an idea of what creative writing is in our degree, I think that often people come into our degree, they're interested in creative writing because they have been working on a novel for years, or because they've been working on a collection of poetry, or they're interested in writing memoir or screenplay. And when you come into the degree here, we certainly kind of encourage and develop those skills and give you the opportunity to work in those forms. But we also see creative writing as something that is very closely engaged in different areas of the industry. We have close connections with publishers. We have close connections with different event producers around Melbourne and Australia, and even international partners in things like media and journalism. And so creative writing is one of those interesting fields that really connects you to lots of different ways of working and thinking, and we certainly see kind of the 3 years of the creative writing degree as an opportunity to expand and extend your interests and to use writing skills as this interesting platform for different kinds of thinking and writing and working. So I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. Could we get the next slide, please? So it's 3 years full time, although you can take it part time as well. Most of our students start in March, but you can also come in mid-year. So there are different program structures, so keep that in mind. The main thing that we do across that 3 years is intensive studios. And so intensive studios means that we give you a lot of deep time to work with a boutique cohort. It's competitive entry. I'll talk in a minute about maybe some tips for how to get in and what you need in order to get in. But the idea is that you spend a lot of time with other writers. Over the 3 years, you get to know the other writers in the program incredibly well as your teachers and academic advisors very, very well. And you become really good at talking about not just writing generically, but about the way that other people work. You get a lot of really specialized advice on how you work, because both the teachers and the other writers in your cohort, who often end up being your kind of industry peers and connections and networks and co-workers for a long time after the degree, they end up figuring out different, like, very specific ways to talk about you and your work. They get to see you develop. So I think that that's one of the pleasures and the interests of the program. And lots of industry partnered courses and projects, which I'll talk about a bit more shortly. Could we get the next slide, please? So the entry requirement, there's no ATAR. The prerequisite is that you need to have finished year 12 in Australia or equivalent, and you need a study score of at least 32 in any English or equivalent studies. But the main thing, as Bruno was saying for advertising, is a selection task. The selection task is one of the most interesting parts of the job for us, is getting to read what everyone writes and submits. And people always want tips as to what to do in their selection task to make themselves more competitive for the program. There's a couple of little sections where you're meant to write about your experience or your interests or your approach to creative writing. And that looks very different for someone who's coming into the degree, you know, having left school 5 or 10 years ago, versus someone who is just in year 12 now. But there's always something that you can talk about. I think it's just best to be specific. That could be things that you've published online or online communities you've gotten involved in. It could be competitions in your school, or publishing and collaboration and competition projects that you've gotten involved in through English in high school. You can You can talk about writers that you like. You know, I think that there's a big difference between seeing someone say, my favorite writers are, you know, X, Y, and Z, and you name them and you say something that you like about them, versus someone just saying, I like books and writing. So be specific, you know, think about what your interests really are. And I think with the creative samples, it's best to be broad. You know, show us a few different things that you can do. You know, if you've never written a poem before, but you've always written scripts, play scripts, take it as a fun opportunity to try writing a poem, because we really just want to see that you're interested in trying things out. You know, there's a lot of encouragement to experiment and to fail, and to think about how that improves you as a writer in the degree. All right, could we get the next slide, please? There's pathways as well. A lot of our students come in through other areas of RMIT. There's the Advanced Diploma of Professional Screenwriting, which is 2 years. There's also the Associate Degree in Professional Writing and Editing, which is 2 years. And in those cases, if you've done the 2 years of either of those courses, you can come in and do basically the last half of the Bachelor of Arts Creative Writing. So that's 1.5 years. It's a really good option for a lot of students. Could we get the next slide, please? So the course structure, as Bruno was saying, for advertising, there's I'll talk about the far right of this structure. There's school minors, there's literary studies, politics, economies and communication, Asian media and culture, cinema studies, and approaches to popular culture. And that's your choice of minors. So everyone who does our degree gets a minor in one of those things. We work very closely with literary studies. A lot of our students end up doing that. And that's something that you build across the 3 years, and that fits among your core studios, as well as electives that you can choose from around RMIT. You know, you can get academic advice that means that you can build a portfolio of electives that really complement your creative writing. So you could do 3 years that's really bulked up with creative writing type subjects, or you can be incredibly broad. There are different ways through it, but our main studios, they're the longer rectangles in dark blue on this chart. You take those in order. That it's the bulk of your degree. There's a lot of contact hours. You start off learning foundations, and then you get exposed to sort of basic forms of writing. You choose a couple of those to specialize in. You work with industry practitioners who will help you develop your writing. And then in the second half of the degree, we sort of move you out into basically industry partnerships and things that will change and expand the way that you think and write in ways that maybe you don't expect. And sometimes that involves working with international partners. Sometimes it involves thinking about Indigenous knowledges and what that means for being a writer in Australia today. Sometimes it means partnering with students from media, for example, and collaborating on short films, or partnering with postgrad students towards an anthology. So there are different ways different kind of pathways that you can choose. And then at the very end, you do a major project. Often that's the thing that people have been thinking about doing or working on in the background for the first 2.5 years of the degree, and that's the capstone for the course. Could we get the next slide? So in those workshops and intensives, one of the things that I can talk about, because I coordinated this subject last semester, is for a third-year subject called Horizons, the 3 different options that you have going into that studio. And this is after you've done a couple of years of building up your skills and your interest in creative writing. You can choose a studio that is about comics and graphic novels, and you work with a local publisher called Glom Press, and you learn production skills. You know, so some people came into that subject because they want to make comics, some people because they're interested in things like animation, some people because of things like production design and magazine making. So you learn print technologies. You also just learn to think about storytelling spatially and visually. There was a subject as well, a studio as well, that partnered with a media organization in Jakarta. So it was a digital international collaboration where they basically wanted creative writing students to help them think about how to design these new ways of of learning digitally. So it was taking creative writing, thinking, and knowledges and applying it to this really interesting real world situation. And very kind of out of the box for a lot of students. And then there was another studio that you could choose called digital writing, where you could take your skills in making poetry or making short fiction or nonfiction and learn how to apply those to different web technologies. And people made really interesting work there as well. And meanwhile, there were also intensives that you could plug into. You could work with other writers over the weekend. You could basically develop a creative writing practice that you can then take and use in other elements of your work. So a lot of deep time to write, as well as these interesting collaborations. All right, could we get the next slide, please? So international collaborations. There are internship opportunities, so you can. We encourage students to take an internship subject that gives them placement in different. It could be in a publishing house, it could be in an organization that's not really related to writing, but they need writers. And actually, that's quite a good jumping off point for the next slide. Which is the Spark Prize. So the Spark Prize is a prize that's currently plugged into our program, and we're running it again next year. It involves working on a commercial nonfiction proposal with the publisher Hardy Grant Books, and actually the master's students at RMIT end up working on developing kind of the long list and the short list for that prize. We have developmental workshops that you can take as a supplementary part of your degree, and a lot of students get a lot out of that. And actually, this image is on the right. I wanted to show you quickly. Our graduating third years last year had this really lively, amazing online group that met every single Thursday night, and they did readings together, and they basically formed a community that I think is still going now. All right, could we get the next slide, please? And perhaps the next slide just for time, but that's one of our wonderful graduates who's a writer, published a memoir this year called Eating with My Mouth Open, Sam Van Zwieden. Could we get the next slide, please? All right, and finally, I'll just talk quickly about career outcomes. So career outcomes, we have a really high rate of students who are in full-time employment at the end of the degree. The last set of data that we saw was 83.3% full-time employed not long after their degree. A lot of students in part-time employment. It's, sometimes people are freelance creative writers. Often they will work in different kinds of arts, events and organizations. They'll sometimes work for publishing houses. They might be copywriters. They often work in communications and broadcasting. It'll often be a mix of all of these things. So a lot of writers are very, very versatile, very confident, very entrepreneurial, and that's really what we want to equip you with at the end of the degree. We want skills to be transferable, and we want you to have the confidence and the assurance to take your career into lots of different places in the industry and to respond to a changing industry as well. And also, very, very lastly, we are one of the only creative writing degrees where you can go all the way through to honours, a Master of Writing and Publishing, and a PhD, and to come into the Bachelor of Arts from elsewhere as well. So there's a lot of things that you can do with writing and publishing and the BA Creative Writing. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for that terrific introduction to the Creative Writing program, Ronnie. Next, we're going to hear from Dr. Deborah Wise. Dr. Wise is a senior lecturer and the program manager for the Bachelor of Communication in Public Relations. Deborah's research is primarily in the area of strategic positioning, and she has published in the areas of health, political public relations, and crisis communication, among others. Prior to moving into academia, Deborah worked in senior public relations roles and has an impressive track record in delivering high-level public relations outcomes, both within Australia and internationally. And a little bit of a fun fact about Dr. Deborah Wise, she once worked as a fashion model in Indonesia. Over to you. Thanks, Deb.
Thanks so much, Michaela. I'm already regretting adding that little fun fact. Womanjika, hello. So one of the things that most people sort of, when you say you work in public relations, you'll say, or say you're studying public relations, they go, well, what does that actually mean? So I thought I'd start with a quote about PR, which says, "No one knows what it really is, but it sounds interesting." And it's possible that this may be where your head is at about public relations as well. So I thought I'd start with a bit of a background. So it's still a relatively new field, and in terms of it being an area of professional practice, it's really only been recognised as being that since the turn of the 20th century, the earlier 20th century. However, some argue that public relations has existed across time, and that whenever people have sought to deliberately influence public sentiment, this can be considered to be public relations. So this gives us a hint then that public relations is about influencing how people think and feel. So for example, how can we influence people to be vaccinated as part of a public health campaign? Another common characteristic that has historically defined public relations is that of having a strategy. And this has led to public relations being called various other names, including strategic communication, public affairs, public diplomacy, and public information, amongst others. Next slide, please, Michaela. Oh, not Michaela. Whoever's looking after the slides. Sorry. Okay, so I can't see my slides. Oh, there it is. Thank you. Okay, so one of the great things about a career in public relations is that it allows you to gain employment in an area that interests you. So for example, you may want to work for an agency where you will work on a variety of campaigns for different clients, or you might choose to work in-house in a corporate communication setting. You might also choose to work for government or for a not-for-profit organisation, or you might even decide to start your own agency. Your day-to-day tasks can also vary enormously and might include social media management, liaising with clients, writing for a variety of publications, planning campaign strategies, or pitching stories to the media. So it's little wonder then that public relations is consistently ranked as being the top 3 creative and media jobs globally. Next slide, please. Another reason why you may be interested in pursuing a career in public relations are the job opportunities. If there is one thing COVID has taught us, it is the importance of communication, and demand for public relations practitioners has not only continued to grow throughout the pandemic, but it is expected to continue growing over the next 5 years. Qualifications also matter, especially in terms of your salary, but also in terms of employability. And we're exceptionally proud of the fact that 91% of RMIT PR students gain employment after completing their degree. So one of the key reasons for this is our links to industry, and it is this that really sets the PR program at RMIT apart from some other universities, but I will discuss this in a little more detail shortly. Next slide, please. So where are our graduates now? Well, they go on to work in a variety of sectors and industries. So for example, one of our graduates works at Edelman in America, which is the leading PR consultancy. Another is a communications manager for the Butterfly Foundation, and another is a senior marketing manager at Amazon. So these are just like examples. We have students now that work all over the world and within Australia. So whatever career direction you have in mind, a communication degree with a specialisation in public relations will develop your capability in research-based strategic communication that is applicable to corporate, government, not-for-profit and consultancy sectors, both in Australia and internationally. Next slide, please. So what will you study if you decide to join us? The PR program at RMIT consists of 9 core public relations courses, as well as contextual studies, school options, and university electives. Core courses are those that you must complete to graduate with a Bachelor of Communication, majoring in public relations. In these courses, you will learn why and how organisations use public relations to build relationships with key stakeholders, and you will build your written and verbal communication skills using a variety of communication media, including social media. You will also hone your analytical skills to prepare you for leadership roles in the industry. At RMIT, we also have a focus on ethics and social responsibility, issues, risk and crisis communication, and on the importance of research and its role in informing public relations campaigns. Next slide, please. So you can see then that the PR program combines both theoretical knowledge with communication skills. And you will find in many of your courses that you work as part of a team and undertake project-based learning that really prepares you for the workplace, where projects and working in teams are often the norm. Many of our courses also ask you to critically reflect on your learning. Next slide, please. One of the other ways you will develop your public relations skills is by undertaking a 100-hour internship or work placement in third year. Such is the success of our internship program that last semester 25% of our students were offered an ongoing position after completing their internship. And this is the highest, I think, rate in the school. Another feature of the PR program is the opportunity to hear from guest speakers who are thought leaders in their creative industries. So just to give you a bit of an example of this semester, final year PR campaign students had a guest lecture on sports PR by the media manager for the Brisbane Broncos. They had a lecture on ethical practice by a leading corporate communication specialist. And they also had a lecture on how to get a foothold in the industry by a well-known podcaster and PR agency owner, Brooke Burns. We also ensure that what you learn is current and up to date by having an industry advisory committee made up of leading PR practitioners who provide advice on the content that is taught throughout the program. The degree is also accredited by the Public Relations Institute of Australia, and it meets the requirements of the international standards for the Global Capability Framework. Next slide, please. Also underpinning the PR program at RMIT is the participation of industry. This is important because it means you will find yourself working on real-world projects for clients from day one of your degree. So far this year, students have completed projects for the Social Enterprise Network of Victoria, the Butterfly Foundation, the Alliance for Water Stewardship Australasia, and the Melbourne Queer Film Festival. And that's just giving a bit of a snapshot of just a few. There's many more. In each of these projects, you will be briefed by clients. And student success in delivering these high-level public relations outcomes not only increases their future employability, but it also helps them to learn about the area of public relations they feel most passionate about, so that, in turn, they can land their dream job when they graduate. Next slide, please. Speaking of dream jobs, I thought I would finish today by sharing a couple of success stories that I think really exemplify how a public relations degree from RMIT can take you anywhere you want to go. So Sam graduated from RMIT in 2017, and while he was still a student, he completed an internship with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. As I mentioned before, quite often happens, Sam's internship led him to gaining a full-time role as the MSO digital content producer. More recently, in 2020, he's taken up a role as the marketing coordinator for the Australian National Academy of Music. So Sam's passion for music has really allowed him to find a career that satisfies that passion. Next slide, please. And lastly, this is Ellie Devendish. She's another of our highly successful graduates. When she graduated, Ellie began working at Endemol Shine as a social media producer for MasterChef and The Voice. As you can see, she's worked her way up to become the producer and then casting producer for MasterChef. And most recently, she's taken up a role as head of media and brand for the Melbourne Football Club. So I suppose after this, you might be thinking, still, is PR right for you? If, like Ellie and Sam, you have an interest in communicating and building relationships with people, both inside and outside of an organisation, and you think you would enjoy the challenge of working in a fast-paced, ever-changing landscape where you learn new things every day, then public relations might just be for you. I hope so. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much, Deb. I might be a little bit biased, but certainly public relations is another great program here in the School of Media and Communication. Now, last but certainly not least, and perhaps we could even say saving the best till last, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Chengju Huang. Chengju is the Program Manager of the Professional Communication Program here in the School of Media and Communication. He's also a Senior Lecturer in the school, and his research interests include Asian and Chinese media studies, international communication, and comparative media systems. Dr. Huang is also currently writing a book titled Popular Journalism in Post-Mao China, and Chengju loves travel, gardening and exercise, including table tennis and a bit of yoga. So over to you. Thanks, Chengju.
Thank you, Michaela, and good morning, everyone. Yes, my name is Chengju Huang, manager of the Professional Communication program. I guess I'm scheduled to be the last to present for a reason, because I guess professional communication is a quite special program. Well, I'm talking about its interdisciplinary nature. Of course, I guess to a certain extent, every program, every of our sister programs, they have the interdisciplinary element or elements. But I guess the difference for Profcom is that the program is deliberately, structurally designed as an international, interdisciplinary program. So we have our core courses, but also we have specialization courses from other programs like advertising, PR, media, and journalism. So I will explain a bit more about this shortly, among other things. Next slide, please. Professional communication is also a very internationalized program. So the program has been taught at SIM University in Singapore for more than 20 years. So in the past 20 years, myself, I've been teaching into courses into that program in Singapore with our partner university there, Singapore SIM University. And we also we have program. The program is also available and also remains extremely popular in RMIT Vietnam, in both campuses in Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi. So this gives our students the cross-campus learning opportunities across the 3 geographical locations, and also access to diverse cultural experience. Next slide, please. Yeah, as I touched upon earlier, the program is very interdisciplinary. This course structure may give you a better idea about that. As you can see, in semester 1, year 1, you would have a test of almost everything across 4 specialization areas: PR, media, journalism, and advertising. So you'll study those 4 courses from those 4 programs. You have a test of everything before you decide which specialization area you may go, starting from the 2nd year. So we have our professional core courses like professional communication foundations, professional writing in the 2nd year, interdisciplinary communication project, media and communication internship, professional communication studio. So those professional courses, core courses, it's our really strong identity. You know, they are, each of them are very interdisciplinary. But in the meantime, you can choose a specialization area to focus your study from the 2nd year. So by the time you are graduating, you are a Profcom student, but specializing in, for instance, PR or media or journalism or advertising. So on top of that, of course, you can choose a contextual studies minor and a couple of university and school electives. Next slide, please. Yeah, as we mentioned that we have our professional communication core courses. So among other courses, I don't have time to introduce each of them. I really want to highlight this particular course called Media and Communication Internship, which is a very important one. In this course, you will have about 80 hours internship plus 1 semester coursework. And what you need to do is to enroll in the course, secure your internship. You can do it yourself. We can help you to find an internship as well. And you complete your will course agreement and get it signed by your course coordinator, and then you can start. After you complete this course, you are really pretty much job ready because this is a really hands-on course. All of our courses are hands-on, but this one, just as I said, use it as an example. The course is available in 3 semesters. Semester 1, semester 2 is, and also our flexible semester in January, so you won't miss it. You would have plenty of opportunities to choose this course, to do this course in one of the 3 semesters. Next slide, please. Yeah, I guess because of our interdisciplinary nature, because our emphasis of industry-oriented, kind of creativity and innovation, and also because of our international reach, our students have been able to work in a wide range of area in the media and communication industry across the region and beyond. Next slide, please. Well, we have many graduate success stories about our graduates. This is a typical one. Nicholas Spain has been working with a few pretty prominent, media communications here, as you can see. So I don't want to say too much about it. And Michaela, and also a graduate from our program a few years ago. So sorry, Michaela, I should have added you to my power slides, but never mind. We can do it next year. Before I finish everything, I just want to emphasize that we designed our course structure based on the interdisciplinary basis for a number of reasons. First, the industrial trend. We believe many employers in the media and communication industry are increasingly looking for interdisciplinary, multi-skilled graduates who are capable to undertake diverse tasks. And also students' needs. Some students do want to have diverse learning interest and want to have broader knowledge base. And accordingly, it may also help increase our students' job opportunities. And finally, for those of you who do want to do media and communication, but don't quite know which specialization you really want to focus on yet, I guess ProfCom as a program give you a good opportunity to do it, because in the first year you were learning a range of courses across the programs, and then starting from next year you can focus on one specialization area. So you can do ProfCom, but you can be a journalist after graduation. You can be a PR officer. You can be a advertising person working in that industry. So give you a very broad and knowledge base and multi skills. That's it from me. Back to you, Michaela.
Thanks so much, Chengju. And look, I'll let you off on a technicality. I was an honours in ProfCom, so slightly different there, but thanks anyway. So thank you for that terrific overview there, Chengju, and thank you to all our presenters here this morning for giving us a great insight into the different programs on offer in the School of Media and Communication. And thank you as well to those of you who have been posting some great questions that have come through on the chat, and we're certainly happy to address those for you. So with that in mind, I would now like to open the floor to questions and to introduce Associate Professor Scott Brook, who is the Associate Dean of Communication. Scott will be responding to a selection of questions and putting perhaps an emphasis on the most popular questions that have come through during this session. So over to you, Scott.
Thank you, Michaela. And thanks to all those who have been posting these really interesting questions. We've been fielding them as quickly as we can, and some of you will receive replies privately and some that are published. I've plucked out a few really interesting questions that will be useful for many of the program managers we have here. The first question I'd like to address to Ronnie and Chengju from the Creative Writing and Professional Communication programs. And this question is there a way to help me improve my writing skills? I'm really passionate about this. Perhaps if we start with you, Ronnie.
Yeah, sure. It's a really good question, and it's a question that probably people often have no matter what they're doing professionally, in our degree, we are firmly of the mind that that it's a mix of different approaches to improve your writing skills. So we're very, very practice focused. We want you to do a lot of writing, to try a lot of things out. It's also about reading widely, reading different theories and approaches to writing, and being around other writers, talking to other writers about their approaches, about what works for them. It's sort of building up a skill set that you can then take and apply to different situations, because everyone has to write, whether it's a creative project or not. But lots of doing. There's sort of no way around that, I think. You learn to write by doing a lot of it.
Okay, thanks, Ronnie. The Professional Communication program has a new core course in professional writing commencing, I believe, next year. Cheng-Ju, can you tell us about that?
Thank you, Scott. Yes, it's a very good question. I guess no matter which program you may do, all courses are pretty writing intensive. You know, you have the opportunity to improve your writing skills across the specialization courses, but also, you know, contextual studies courses. You know, I'm teaching into contextual studies courses. You know, each of those courses normally you would have to write 2 essays. First essay, second essay, and lots of, you know, online posts, you know, discussion and so on. But for Profcom, as Scott mentioned, we are introducing a new course called professional writing. Really, provide you the opportunity to improve your writing skills across different areas in terms of PR writing, in terms of advertising writing, in terms of you know, different genres, different styles, and so on. So it's a very specific course for one whole semester to train you, to equip you with those kind of writing skills, to write a different kind of media and communication texts, and so on. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks so much, Cheng-Ju. So as you heard, there's a number of ways to improve your writing skills across the school, depending on the genres and formats and industries that you're interested in writing for, all the way from creative writing through advertising to writing for organisations through, for instance, PR. My next question is a terrific question. I'll open this up to all program managers. How do we find out which communication career is best for us? Perhaps if I can start with you, Michaela. Oh, sorry, Deb from PR.
Oh, throw me a tricky one, Scott. Look, I think that's actually quite difficult to answer, because I think people actually have to sort of think about themselves I think Cheng-Ju said something before about, you know, thinking about what contribution you want to make when you go out into the workforce. So where do you see yourself fitting in? And where do you see your talents lie? Sometimes, you know, that question, what do I want to do when I grow up? You don't even know, especially when you're first starting at university. And I think one of the great things about our program broadly, the Bachelor of Communication, it does give you lots of opportunities to try different things. And you'll also find that a lot of the skill sets, even if you started doing an advertising degree, because you get a chance to do so many other subjects as part of that degree, if you don't end up actually working in advertising, you might even go and work in PR, because a lot of the skills are actually transferable between programs. I don't think I'm saying the wrong thing in saying that. So often you'll find students that have majored in journalism will end up working in public relations, for example. So I think it's really a matter of thinking about what your real strengths are. These are all creative positions. I would say it's quite clear that writing is a really important thing for all of these, for all of the different majors that we offer at RMIT. But it's really hard to sort of say oh, well, you should do this or you should do that. You need to think about what contribution you want to make, how you picture yourself working, and and where you think your particular strengths lie. Sorry, I couldn't be more specific than that.
Thanks, Deb. I'll now cut across to Ronnie Scott from the writing program. How do we find out which communication career is best for us?
Thanks, Scott. I mean, I would second what Deb said. All really good advice, and I would just add that that a lot of what we've been speaking to today, you can find out more about by Googling our programs. It's very simple to Google RMIT Creative Writing, RMIT Professional Communication, for example, and you can kind of get a recap of a lot of what we've discussed. And you can go through that, in quite a lot of detail and think, well, where do I want to be? Where do I want to be in 3 years? I think that it's really good to think about what you want to be doing at the end of the degree, because of course the degree is an experience. Of course there are things that you'll learn, there are things that you'll do, but it's really about where you want to get to as well. And so that's maybe one approach that you could take, is go through all of the info about the courses in detail and try to give yourself a bit of a 5-year plan, give yourself a bit of a 10-year plan, and think about how you're going to get there.
Great, thanks, Ronnie. And we'll have a couple of final words from Michaela on this question.
Thanks, Scott. I think absolutely, I won't repeat what Deb and Ronnie have said, but completely agree with that. I think I would encourage students as well to approach whichever program they choose with an open mind. And I think we all enter a program with expectations, but you're going to learn probably a whole lot of new things that you didn't even know that you would learn. So I know certainly in some of the subjects that I take, students can be quite pleasantly surprised about different aspects of communication that they learn. The other thing that I would just say, having worked for sort of 20+ years in communication, is that it is such a fascinating and broad field that I think it's a discipline that will forever keep you engaged. And it's also, as Deb mentioned, I think a highly transferable discipline. So I would say, regardless of which particular program you choose, we all know that, for instance, people in health need to communicate, or people in education or science need to communicate. So I think don't feel that you're necessarily locked in to the degree or the program that you choose. Think of it as a starting point. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Michaela. And I have another question here, and a very important question. Do I get opportunities to blend my communication study with other subjects, for example, IT or business? And I'll throw to Bruno Shavinsky from advertising on that one.
Thank you, Scott. There's absolutely no problem to link advertising with business. I would say more specifically with marketing and marketing management, because advertising is also a part of the marketing tools. Although what we're going to be focusing and learning here at the Bachelor of Communication Advertising is the creation of the ads, it complements to what business is doing, which is the implementation of what have been created on, on the practice, on marketing practice, linking to the product or to the development of new products. So they work together. I see absolutely no problem to do that, and I actually recommend the students from the creative perspective to have also this business perspective, and vice versa. I'm coming from a business school, and it was great to see the business and the marketing perspective also checking on the creative side of advertising.
Great, thank you, Bruno. I've got one question which I might keep you on the line, Bruno, for. What are the job outcomes, especially with the digital environment changing so rapidly? And of course, this is something that has affected the advertising field significantly, and then I'll go to others.
Well, I would say the opportunity right here, it's not a trend that's happening in the advertising, but with the pandemic and the ways groups are interacting and working together in the online environment, it has opened up like a plethora of options for the creatives. So for example, if you would say 5 years ago, the teams would probably working on an agency, and sometimes they would have this international cooperation. These boundaries are no more in place today. Like we have groups working with, for example, people in Melbourne or people in New York, London, LA, all working together. So I would say like it's more of an opportunity. Of course, we're talking about the online environment, but everything that's produced in this, let's say, new or adaptive environment, it can be translated to offline as well. So, for example, the design of billboards or advertising that you see in magazine. So I would say like it's like a blend of what we have done so far and using the technology so we can work together as like a global teams.
Great, thanks you, Bruno. Chenju, I might go across to you now. Our Profcom embraces specialisms across a range of areas that have been affected by the digital economy. How would you respond to the question, what are the job outcomes, especially with the digital environment changing so rapidly?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yes. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, for Profcom, because of our interdisciplinary nature, our students, our graduates have been able to find, jobs across the media and communication industry. In the era of digitalization, of course, it has give us both challenges and new opportunities. And for instance, I'll give you an example like media and communication internship as a course. Traditionally, our students did their internship in a physical, in a company, face to face. And nowadays, because of the pandemic, and our students could do, internship course online. Each of our students enrolled in the course like last year, this year, they have been able to find an internship place, and most of them, they are doing actually online. So we have to be more adaptable. And also, I guess that when we think about jobs in the era of digitalization, we have to think about in international context. And we have graduates not only working in Australia, but also in the Asian region and beyond. And digitalization or digital media development in the Asian region is very developing very quickly and providing lots of job opportunities. So for our graduates or future graduates, for you guys as prospective students in future, I guess you may open your mind a bit and thinking about job opportunities in other geographic locations. You could be a foreign correspondent based in Beijing, You could be a PR officer working for the Bangkok branch of an Australian company, So all that kind of things, if you open your mind, become more adaptable, think about something more internationally, I think the opportunities are there.
Great, thank you, Chenju. Well, as you would have heard, it's exciting times for communication graduates, given the broader range of occupations and industries across which their skills are in need, and particularly those with digital skills. Communication and digital communication have become ubiquitous in many more industries and workplaces than historically were the case. So that wraps up our questions. We will publish links to the program email addresses for the individual programs so that you can email questions to those programs that you may have. And I just remind you that there's a lot of information about the industries and companies that we partner with in terms of industry partnerships and so on the websites. So I will now cut across to Michaela Jackson, our MC. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much for that, Scott, and for all our staff for jumping in and addressing those questions. Thank you to those of you joining us today as well for giving up your time and taking a little bit of time out of your schedule to learn about our globally recognised programs. So we hope that you found this session interesting and helpful, and of course we hope to welcome and work with you in our programs in the near future. So please join us as well for this afternoon's session, which is a live Q&A regarding our media programs at 3 p.m. and that will showcase our programs related to journalism, music industry and media as well. So for more information on the programs we've discussed today, as well as those programs we'll discuss this afternoon, you can head to the RMIT website. I understand there are some very helpful email addresses that are also being shared in the Q&A portal as well. if you'd prefer to email your questions through. So thank you so much for your time, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.